Moscow, January 3, 1985. Winter swept through the city with relentless ferocity. Gusts of wind sliced through the air with icy claws, penetrating layers of clothing and heaters. Red Square, normally teeming with tourists and marching soldiers, lay deserted, save for a few scattered guards at their posts. The imposing Kremlin loomed over the landscape like a wall of secrets, its snow-covered rooftops and colorful towers defying the gray sky. No one passing by, not even the soldiers in their heavy uniforms, knew that deep beneath those historic walls, a secret as old as Russia itself, twisted in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. My name is Dmitry Alexeyev, and the reason I'm telling this story, decades after I fled Moscow, is because I know I am dying. Cancer eats away at my body bit by bit, just as that damned creature devoured my soul more than 40 years ago. And as I feel the end drawing near, I realize that the only relief I can find now is to tell the world what really happened that cold night beneath the Kremlin. There is something Russian leaders have hidden from their own people, something no government or regime wants to admit, something alive. I didn't begin my life as a man tied to secrets or conspiracies. I was a simple historian, an academic who spent his youth in the stuffy corridors of Leningrad's libraries, trying to understand the mysteries of our history. My particular interest was the medieval era, the deep roots the Kremlin had planted in the fertile soil of old Muscovy. When I received an official invitation from the government to work directly in the Kremlin's hidden archives, I didn't hesitate. It seemed like a scholar's dream, access to documents dating back centuries, to the very foundation of modern Russia. I knew there were secrets there, as anyone studying the country's past would. What I didn't know was how dangerous they could be. I arrived in Moscow in early December 1984, at the height of the Cold War, when fear filled the air and distrust was as sharp a weapon as any blade. My job was simple: catalog rare documents, some never seen outside the Kremlin's walls. There were only a few of us, historians, archaeologists, linguists, all carefully selected by the government. During the first few days, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. We uncovered ancient manuscripts, lost treaties, diplomatic documents. But then, something changed. I remember clearly the morning when Boris Ivanov, a fellow archaeologist, called me to a corner of the archive room. The smell of mold and dust hung thick in the air, and the cold rising from the stone floor was unrelenting, as though no heater could ever dispel the chill that had settled in those underground chambers for hundreds of years. He held an old map, a crude drawing of the Kremlin, but something about it was different. "Look here," he said, pointing to a section of the map. "These corridors aren't on any modern maps." There was something sinister about the map. It revealed a series of underground tunnels that seemed untouched for centuries. There were no records of them in any official plans or public archives. They were ancient passages, long and winding, snaking beneath the Kremlin like the deep roots of a dead tree. We decided to investigate. The entrance to the tunnels was hidden behind a false wall in a forgotten chamber deep in the oldest basements. It was a nearly rotted wooden trapdoor, surrounded by inscriptions none of us could accurately identify, a mix of archaic Russian and symbols resembling pagan runes. Something about it made me hesitate, but Boris was determined. "It's an archaeological discovery," he exclaimed, his excitement overriding his common sense. And how could I refuse? The curiosity that had driven me since childhood was stronger than the fear beginning to take root in my mind. We descended with flashlights, their weak beams flickering against the stone walls. With each step, the air grew heavier, denser. The smell of mold thickened, mixed with something that seemed metallic. The walls were covered in strange inscriptions, like claw marks. And over time, I realized they weren't just marks. They were carvings made with brutal force, as if something had scratched the rock in desperation. We walked for almost an hour before we found the first evidence that we were not alone down there. It was Boris who stumbled first. The sound of his body hitting the ground echoed loudly through the tunnels, but the scream that escaped his mouth was what froze my heart. When I rushed to help him, I saw the reason for his terror. Bones, hundreds of them, scattered across the floor, piled up in heaps. Some looked ancient, brittle, covered in dust. But there were others, more recent, and they weren't just from animals. There were human skulls, ribs, femurs, all mixed together as if something had devoured the flesh and left the remains behind. Boris trembled as he got up. This shouldn't be here. I wanted to leave. Something inside me screamed that we should turn back, seal that passage, and never return. But before I could speak, we heard it. A low, guttural sound, reverberating through the stone walls. It was as if the earth's bowels were shifting, writhing. Boris looked at me, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Something is here," he whispered. The creature revealed itself that night. I cannot fully describe it, for my mind refuses to relive all the details. But I remember the eyes that glowed in the dark like embers burning with ancient hunger. It did not move like an animal, but like something that had forgotten how to be alive. Its legs, or whatever they were, bent at unnatural angles, and its bones cracked with each movement. The smell of rot filled the air as it approached, and then Boris ran. I wanted to stop him, but panic had overtaken him. I saw his legs fail as he tripped over the scattered bones, and before I could reach his outstretched hand, the thing took him. His screams echoed through the tunnels, and all I could do was watch as he was dragged into the darkness. The sound of flesh being torn, bones snapping, and the silence that followed was like a hammer driving terror into my mind. I should have run. I should have fled immediately. But I was drawn, almost hypnotized, deeper into the tunnel, toward where the creature had come from. I found what I can only describe as a lair, an immense chamber with a dome of rough stone, covered in ancient symbols. In the center, there was a fissure in the floor, from which heat rose like the breath of a sleeping monster. And around that fissure were bones, countless bones, arranged in precise circles. And then I saw. I don't know if it was a vision, a delusion born of fear, or something the creature wanted me to see, but for a moment, the past unfolded before me. Ancient kings, czars, and rulers of all eras came to that place. They fed the thing that lived there, sacrificed in secret to maintain power, to ensure their dynasties prospered. Blood was spilled, life was given in exchange for stability. The creature had been there for centuries, fed by the powerful, kept secret, controlled, but never fully tamed. Somehow, I escaped that chamber. I don't remember how I managed to return to the surface, only the metallic taste in my mouth and the cold burning my skin. I wandered the corridors until I was found by guards, and, as if they had been expecting me, I was immediately taken in for interrogation. I was silenced. They knew what I had seen, knew that I knew too much. They didn't dare kill me. That would have drawn too much attention. But I was banished from Russia. My name was erased from academic records, my credentials revoked, and I lived like a ghost, carrying the burden of a secret no government would ever dare reveal. Now, lying in this hospital bed, on the edge of death, I feel the weight of time on my shoulders. The past 40 years have been lived in the shadows, always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the moment when the Kremlin would come to finish what it started. And in a way, I know it has come. The cancer that eats away at my body, pulling me further from life every day, is not a common illness. I am certain it is a dark legacy of what I saw that night in the Kremlin's underground. That creature left its mark on me, an invisible curse that the Russian leaders must have planned to silence me, to ensure I never told the truth. But now, with death at my door, I have no more fear. They cannot reach me in the afterlife, and that's why I am finally sharing what I know. As I tell this story, I realize the memories of that time overwhelm me, not because I want to remember, but because what happened is etched into my mind like a nightmare I cannot wake from. The nights are the worst. Boris's screams echo in my dreams, mixed with the sound of that monster, that ancient, hungry being, moving in the depths of the earth far below the Kremlin. I tried to move on with my life after Moscow, but the beast never left me. It was as if I had brought a part of it with me, a dark shadow that haunted my days and consumed my nights. But what haunts me most is not what happened, but what continues to happen. Because I know for certain that the beast is still down there. It cannot be destroyed, not in any conventional way. It is part of something larger, something that predates Russia itself, something born of the Earth's primal darkness and hunger, and the Kremlin, this symbol of power and control, is actually at its mercy. After I was expelled from Russia, I began researching on my own, something any sane person would have avoided. I knew I was playing with my own sanity by seeking more information about the creature, but I had to understand. I traveled to several countries, searching for ancient texts, forgotten accounts, and buried legends. What I discovered only terrified me more. Russian leaders, throughout the centuries, have kept this creature dormant, feeding it with human sacrifices since the time of Ivan the Terrible. In fact, it is the reason behind many of the mysterious events in Russian history. When the Kremlin's power is at risk, when instability threatens the nation, they release it, letting it feed again to ensure that balance is restored, a macabre cycle of hunger and power. There are rumors dating back even before the construction of the Kremlin, from a time when Moscow was just a small village. They said that an underground creature, a wild and untamable force, lived beneath the earth, devouring anyone who came near its lair. It was during this time that local tribes began offering sacrifices, believing that the creature could be appeased, and over time, the rulers discovered that not only could the beast be appeased, but it could be used for their own purposes. However, the most disturbing part of this whole story is what I discovered about its purpose. The creature is not just a being of hunger and destruction, it is a guardian, a sentinel of something much darker. Deep in those tunnels that wind beneath the Kremlin, there is something even more terrifying. I don't know exactly what it is, but from what I've been able to decipher from ancient documents and fragmented stories, this entity, the beast, is only the first layer of a far greater evil, something as old as time itself, something that the earliest Russian rulers swore to keep locked below the earth. But over the centuries, the balance began to unravel. The power the rulers believed they had over the beast has diminished, and now it moves with more freedom. In fact, the more the Kremlin struggles to maintain order, the more the monster slips from their control. And when that happens, when the chains that bind it finally break, whatever sleeps in the heart of the earth will awaken. The signs are already there for anyone willing to see. Strange incidents have been happening in Moscow. People disappear without explanation. Guards around the Kremlin report hearing strange noises from below, as if the earth itself is groaning. But no one speaks about it openly. The leaders know they must maintain the facade of power. The very foundation of Russia depends on it. With the end of the Cold War, many believed the Kremlin would become more transparent, that the buried secrets would finally come to light. But what these naive souls don't realize is that the Kremlin's secrets are not merely political or military. They are far older, far more dangerous, and far deadlier. There was a time when I believed that perhaps I could do something to warn the world, to prevent the beast from being released again. But fear and isolation defeated me. Veiled threats, anonymous phone calls, and even accidents that happened to those close to me were enough to silence me. Even in exile, the Kremlin's long shadow followed me, suffocating me with the certainty that at any moment they could find me and end me for good. But now, at the end of my life, I have nothing left to lose. That's why I'm telling this story, not to redeem myself or seek justice, but so that perhaps someone who reads this can act before it's too late, because I know the time of the creature is coming again. It is no coincidence that Russia is in a constant state of tension, that the leaders seem more desperate than ever to maintain control. The beast, with its insatiable hunger, must already be stirring beneath the Kremlin, ready to be released once again. And when that happens, the world will see that the greatest monsters are not man-made, but rather the ancient secrets that should never have been awakened. I look out the hospital window and see the lights of Moscow in the distance, flickering as if they're dancing under the softly falling snow. I know I will never return to that city, will never again walk the frozen streets of Red Square, but, in a way, the beast never left me. Even now I feel as if its hungry eyes are fixed on me, waiting patiently to feast on my soul. Russia has always been a land of mysteries, of dark secrets hidden in the folds of history. But among all those secrets, the beast of the Kremlin is the oldest and the deadliest. And when it is unleashed again, as it inevitably will be, the world will never be the same. Now, as death touches me more palpably with each passing moment, I feel a final presence in the room. I don't need to open my eyes to know who or what is with me. The beast has found me. It has come to claim what is rightfully its own. After all, no one can escape the Kremlin forever, I feel the air around me grow thick, laden with something beyond simple fear. I open my eyes, and the hospital room seems to distort slightly. It's as if the walls are vibrating, the corners of the room gradually darkening. I catch the scent, that rusty metallic smell, reminding me of the scattered bones beneath the Kremlin. And that's when I know, the beast is here. My breathing becomes erratic, my heart pounding painfully in my chest. The physical pain, which had accompanied me for weeks, merges with a sense of terror so primal that my body begins to tremble involuntarily. I try to move, to rise from the bed, to scream for help, but nothing happens. My legs won't respond. My arms are trapped in the weakness of my decaying body. All I can do is wait. And then, from the darkest corner of the room, I see something emerge. A shadow? No. Something more tangible. The figure moves with unnatural fluidity, as if bending the very space around it. The contours of the thing become clearer, and I shiver as I realize it is more terrifying than I remembered. The eyes, those hungry, smoldering eyes, are the first thing I see, glowing darkly like hot coals. Its long, bony legs drag across the floor, each movement emitting a low crack, as if something were breaking inside it. I should be screaming, fighting, begging for my life, but the beast has a deeper power, a more visceral one, that paralyzes even the very will to survive. The cold emanating from it is not the cold of ice, but of emptiness. Like all hope and light are being sucked into that thing. It approaches the bed, bending over me. Its face, if I can even call it a face, contorts into something that seems a grotesque caricature of a human expression. My heart, already weak, races in a final effort, but it's no use. The beast is here to claim what has always been hers, my soul, my sanity, my body, and she takes her time, savoring the fear, feeding on my agony. I remember Boris being dragged, his screams echoing through the tunnels, and now I understand what he felt, the absolute despair, the certainty of death, but with something even worse, the awareness that what was destroying him was not of this world, did not follow the laws of nature. The creature stretches out one of its claws, long and sharp like a guillotine's blade. Its skin is pale, translucent, the bones visible beneath the withered flesh. The touch is icy, so cold it feels like it's burning. It leans over me, its face now inches from mine. Its eyes don't blink, fixed on mine, as if they're piercing straight into my mind. And then it whispers, not with words, but with thoughts, invading my mind in a way no voice ever could. I don't know if it's real or the product of my own madness, but the images that form in my head are too clear to be mere delusions. I see the past, the centuries of corrupted power that fed her. Kings and leaders kneeling before her, offering human sacrifices in exchange for stability, for control. I see mighty czars trembling in fear as they make blood pacts, ensuring that Russia would never collapse. I see revolutions, wars, moments of crisis when she was released to devour, to restore balance with death and destruction. But what disturbs me most is the future, because she shows me what is to come. I see the Kremlin again, its towering spires, its walls that always seemed unbreakable. But now, they are cracking. Not literally, but symbolically. The power the leaders have over the beast is crumbling. The control, maintained by centuries of secret rituals and sacrifices, is fading. Her hunger grows, uncontrollable. And then I see Moscow, devastated. Red Square covered in bodies, chaos in the streets, the sky tinged blood red, and the beast, free, walking through the ruins of civilization, destroying everything in her path. This vision consumes me, and when the beast finally pulls her claw away from me, I am reduced to a shadow of what I once was. There are no more tears to shed, no voice left to scream. I am only an empty shell, a man who once was Dmitry Alexeyev, but who is now only the echo of a dark secret, hidden in the Kremlin's underground. The beast begins to withdraw, slowly, almost as if satisfied, but I know this is not the end. She has left me with one final gift, a mark, a reminder that the Kremlin never forgets, that she will always find me. And as she dissolves into the room's shadows, I feel that I am not the only one she is watching, because there are others who know, others who, like me, have had contact with this ancient evil. I am dying, and I cannot stop it. But what torments me most is knowing that when the beast is unleashed again, and it will be, the world will not be prepared, and there will be nothing to stop the insatiable hunger that lies beneath Moscow's feet. I close my eyes, and the sound of footsteps echoes in the empty room. The end? No. The beast always returns. My eyelids are heavy, as if weighed down by lead, and the darkness enveloping me seems thicker than the night itself. However, the sound of footsteps persists, slow, dragging, reverberating through the hospital room like a constant beat echoing in the back of my mind. For a brief moment, I think it is my own failing breath, a reflection of my body nearing its end. But then, there's a crack, that dry snap that doesn't belong to this world, the sound of bones twisting and the creature moving. A chill runs down my spine, a final shiver of terror coursing through my dying veins. I try to open my eyes, but my body refuses. I feel the mattress sink slightly beside me, the weight of something crouching next to my bed, a tangible, terrifying presence. It's as if the air around me is being sucked into this thing, making the room stifling. The smell of rust and decaying flesh fills my nostrils, pulling me into memories I would rather keep buried. Then, I feel something cold and wet touch my face, the tip of a claw, or perhaps a skeletal finger, tracing a slow, calculated path along my skin, as if it's mapping the final connection that holds me to this world. My body is paralyzed, not by fear, but by something deeper, something the beast has always carried with her, a sense of inevitability. There is no escape, there never was, and in the silence, she speaks to me, not with words, but with a voice that echoes in my mind, a whisper that pierces through my final defenses. "You belong to me," the voice says, slow, wrapped in an ancient darkness. My thoughts try to react, to grasp at any fragment of resistance, but I am too weak. I am trapped in this bed, powerless, and the creature knows it. She feeds on my despair, savors the death that is fast approaching. The sensation is that of being sucked dry, emptied from within. Every passing second, I feel further from life, as if she is absorbing whatever essence remains in me. "You thought you could escape," the voice continues. "But the Kremlin never forgets, Dmitri." That's a name I haven't heard in years, in fact, in decades. Since I was expelled from Russia, erased, stripped of any trace of my former life. Since I became a ghost in exile, haunted by the memory of that night and the certainty that one day she would find me.
My thoughts swirl in a chaotic current of memories. I remember the moment I fled the underground, the panic pulsing in every cell of my body. I remember Boris being dragged into the depths of his scream, but no end was there.
Really meant it wasn't just pain, it was the awareness that he too would never escape, that once you see the beast, she will always be with you, waiting for the right moment to claim what is hers. But there's something more.
The beast isn't just me. She's inside. It's a big story. It's a big perpetuators.
That service into reality, I have become part of her without even to beg for it to end quickly, for the suffering to stop. But all that escapes my lips is a weak moan, muffled by the suffocating presence beside me. The physical pain intensifies, as if inside out, exploding my memories, my deepest emotions, to find what's left of me. It's in this moment that I realize it's not just the beast who's with me. The Kremlin is using her too. The lead is part of this dark cycle as well. They've always known. There's just another piece in this monstrous game, another sacrifice.
And it's at this point that something unexpected happens, something I didn't anticipate, a moment of clarity, as if a veil has been lifted. For a brief second, I see everything with overwhelming sharpness. The beast, with her insatiable hunger, is just a tool. Something far older and more malevolent lies deep in the earth, an entity that has controlled the creature, the leaders, and even Russian history for centuries. The beast of the Kremlin, after all, is not the end. She is merely the key, the door that keeps something worse locked away. A deadly chill runs through me. What is trapped down there beyond the creature? My body no longer belongs to me, but my mind races with this new revelation. This cycle of power, hunger, and sacrifice serves a greater purpose, a purpose the Russian rulers have avoided, but know is inevitable. When the true evil is released, the beast will be nothing but a memory. The horror that will come will take Russia and the world in a way no sacrifice can contain. The last part of me that still resists terror tries to understand why. Why now? Why am I seeing this in my final moment? Did all those who faced the beast before me receive this vision too? And most importantly, what can I do? But there is no answer. Time is running out. I feel the pressure on my chest increase. I can no longer breathe. The beast leans over me, her eyes glowing with insatiable hunger, the grotesque smile spreading across her distorted face. She is a creature of terror and chaos, and she is here to complete the cycle. My vision begins to darken as my heart beats its last. In the depths of my mind, I hear the echo of a low laugh, almost human, but deeply distorted. It is not from the beast. It is something else, something watching from afar, waiting patiently. Perhaps it is the entity I glimpsed. Perhaps it is the end of everything. My body succumbs to the darkness. The beast devours me, and everything disappears. The pain, the fear, the life. But deep beneath the Kremlin's foundations, something stirs. Something the Russian leaders have always feared, but never managed to stop. And now, with my death, the first step toward its release has been taken. The story of the Kremlin is not over. Not while the creature beneath its foundations still breathes. The darkness finally envelops me completely, and for a moment, everything fades away. Pain, fear, consciousness. There is nothing but emptiness, and for a brief instant, I think it's over. That death has at last brought me the eternal silence I longed for. But no, there is something even deeper in this abyss, something that continues to pulse, to breathe, even as my life slips away. It feels as though I'm floating on the brink between life and death, trapped in a place where time has no meaning. The darkness, contrary to what I thought, is not empty. It's alive, throbbing. There's a distant whisper, growing louder, and even though I don't want to, I am drawn toward it, like a puppet whose strings have been taken up by an invisible master. I cannot see, but I can feel. I feel that I am not alone. There is a force here, a presence as ancient as the Kremlin itself, watching me, permeating every atom of this dark space. It is vastly greater than the beast, far beyond anything my human mind could comprehend. And it is in this awareness that the real terror hits me with crushing force. Because if the beast, the creature that has haunted me for decades, was merely a guardian, then whatever is here with me now is something that time itself has forgotten, but that never ceased to exist. Its whispers surround me. I cannot understand the words, but the essence of the message is clear. The Kremlin, the beast, the sacrifices, all of it was just preparation. A superficial layer of the true purpose that lies hidden in the depths of Russian history. The royal families, the czars, the Soviet leaders, they all thought they controlled the beast, that they could manipulate her hunger, use her to protect their power. But the truth is far more terrible. They were mere servants to something much larger, something they never truly managed to dominate. Then, I see fragments of the past unfolding before me like a feverish nightmare. Men dressed in robes, czars kneeling before primitive altars, offering human sacrifices to this invisible force that controls the beast. I see Ivan the Terrible himself offering his son, not in a fit of madness, as history tells, but as part of a dark pact, a promise of eternal power. I see Stalin, in his final days, suffocating in paranoia and fear, turning to forgotten rituals in a desperate attempt to appease the entity that has never left the Kremlin. With each sacrifice, they believed they were maintaining balance, but all they did was feed this ancient evil. My body, or what's left of it, feels distant, as if I am being sucked into the center of something vast, unfathomable. I try to cling to some last spark of sanity, but I am too weak. The voices in the darkness grow louder, more insistent, as if something is preparing to emerge from the depths. And then I see the Kremlin, up above, like a distant vision. The towers, the snow-covered roofs, the vast red square. But beneath the earth, beneath the ancient stones and foundations, something stirs. It is not the beast. She has already taken what she wanted from me. and her hunger has been temporarily sated. No, what moves now is deeper, a presence that has been asleep for centuries, waiting patiently for the right time to awaken. I finally understand the cycle of sacrifices, the reason the Kremlin was built in that specific place. It wasn't men's choice. That land has always been cursed, has always been a prison for what lies below. The beast was placed there to contain the true horror, to keep the door closed. But now, with control slipping away, with the leaders no longer knowing how to appease her growing hunger, that prison is about to collapse. I am part of this. My death, my sacrifice, was just another brick in that wall. And now, as I am about to be consumed, the wall is breaking. I see cracks forming beneath the earth. I see ancient tunnels collapsing, arcane symbols glowing with a sinister light, and I hear the deep sound of something moving, something waking from a long and restless sleep. The beast, that creature so many rulers feared, was just a shadow compared to what is rising now. The true entity, the one that controlled czars and leaders, is preparing to be freed, and the world will never see what's coming. I feel myself being pulled once again, and this time, there is no resisting. The force dragging me is absolute, inescapable. There are no more doubts, no more hopes of survival. I am falling, being consumed by the abyss that opens beneath the Kremlin. Every piece of my consciousness, every memory, every fragment of who I was, is devoured, swallowed by the darkness that now surrounds everything. But before I am completely taken, there is one last vision, a vision of the future. I see Moscow in ruins, the towers of the Kremlin collapse, the earth splits open in deep chasms, and from the depths, a reddish light emerges, along with screams and wails that are not human. The beast, freed from her role as guardian, walks free, but she is only a forerunner. Behind her, a much larger shadow, something formless and limitless, rises from the earth, engulfing everything in its path. The city that was once the heart of Russia disintegrates into chaos and despair. I see leaders, politicians, soldiers, all powerless in the face of what has been awakened. And then, I see beyond. The nations of the world, one by one, falling under the weight of an incomprehensible force. The war, the destruction, everything that came before, was only a prelude to the true apocalypse now unfolding. And in that final moment before I disappear forever, I grasp the most cruel truth. The Kremlin was never the center of power. It was, from the beginning, the tomb of something that should never have been awakened. My vision fades, the darkness consumes me completely, and then, silence. The end finally finds me. But for the world, the true terror is only just beginning.